Welcome to Bali, an Indonesian island that beyond its picturesque landscapes and rich culture is also a paradise for mile and point enthusiasts. So this week, between chilling with monkeys and hand-making our own Balinese jewelry, I want to share with you some of the incredible flight and hotel redemptions that I found here in Bali that allowed us to spend a week here for almost free, and how you could spend a month in what is now one of my favorite places in the world using the sign-up bonus from one credit card.
I think I'm officially in love with Bali. All right, let's talk flights, and if you're coming from the US, you are not gonna find many travel days longer than a flight to Bali, so you wanna make sure that you get this right. Before we get to the specific examples that I found, some general info that you'll wanna know. First of all, the main airport in Bali is DPS, and at least at the time of recording this video, there are no direct flights from North America, so you will have to connect through one of these airports, but as you can see from this map, you have plenty of options. Also, if you're used to European award pricing from the US, then you should absolutely throw those numbers out of your mind, because you are not going to snag a 12,000 point economy seat to Bali. And in most cases, actually, the price of an economy seat might cost as much as some business class seats to Europe that you might be used to. Just wanted to ward off any impending sticker shock, but the good news is that once you get here, much like other parts of Southeast Asia, this can actually be a very affordable place, especially if you're coming from Western cultures. So there are quite literally dozens of airlines that fly here, but here's a few of the best point redemptions that I found. Option 1 is connecting through Hong Kong on Cathay Pacific from US cities like LA, Chicago, and New York. Economy availability is pretty wide open for around 38,000 points directly through Cathay Pacific, and if you're lucky enough to find availability, you could of course book Cathay Pacific's incredible business and first class products, which are fantastic, but expect to pay over 6 figures if you can even find the award space. Now option 2 is actually the route that we took to get here, and that is connecting through Doha on Qatar Airways from Seattle, Miami, or our home airport of IAD in Washington, D.C. Now, obviously, there are lots of other cities on this map for Qatar Airways, but our economy seats were 50,000 points through Qatar, and if you can find award space, Qatar Airways is of course known for their incredible Q Suites products, which you can find for around 100,000 points one way if you're lucky enough to find award space. Just remember that with Qatar Airways, not all business class is created equal, so try not to get your hopes up too much for Q Suites.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
Booking directly through Qatar is definitely your cheapest option in that case, but depending on the type of transferable points you have, you can also book these through several Oneworld partners as well. I'll also mention here that Qatar Airways offers an incredible stopover program in Doha that'll allow you to get really cheap hotels and some fantastic transit tours like the one we took on our short layover. Now, that brings us to option 3, and that is the airline that we'll be leaving Bali on, and that is Singapore Airlines. Singapore is just a stone's throw away from Bali, and their own KrisFlyer program offers flights like this San Francisco to DPS via Singapore route for just 42,000 points in economy, or if you're a maniac and you want to take the longest flight in the world, then you could fly from JFK to Singapore on your way to Bali, but unless that's in business or first class, I think I'll pass on that one. Now, since Singapore Airlines is part of the Star Alliance, you could also book business class for just 87,000 points through fellow Star Alliance partner Aeroplan. And again, that's just going to depend on what type of transferable points you have, your available transfer options, and if there's any transfer bonuses going on.
Okay, we've still got to talk about the cheapest way to fly to Bali and some of the incredible deals on accommodations that could let you stay here for a month using one sign-up bonus. But let's take a quick break from all of these endless examples to talk about some of the fun things you can do in Bali, because you didn't fly to the other side of the world to sit and stare at the monkeys. Although that is kind of fun too. We could talk forever about the many things to do here, and I'm certainly not an expert, but my biggest recommendation for first-timers is to do some kind of private tour, which you can find on lots of different websites. Not only are these incredibly affordable in my opinion, but getting to spend an entire day with a local is invaluable, and I think we got to see more in this one-day private tour than we would have seen in a week trying to piece all of this stuff together ourselves. Is it a little touristy? Sure, but it gave us a small taste of the beautiful Balinese culture, food, religion, art, and everything in between. Another day we did a jewelry making class, which was way more fun than I thought it would be, and while I don't think I'll become a silversmith anytime soon, again, this is a big part of Balinese culture, and this was a great way to get a small taste of that.
They said it takes 5 days to make the bracelet that we saw, and we have 4 hours, so this should be fun.
And we're not creative.
We make videos on the internet.
And yes, there of course are the monkeys. Lots of monkeys. Anyway, just a few of my favorite highlights. There certainly are more things to do here, but let's get back to miles and points.
Lastly, while it's not going to be your fastest way to get here, some of the cheapest options I found were actually through the Flying Blue Rewards program, which is Air France and KLM, like this IAD to DPS economy seat for just 45,000 miles, or by instead searching through Daily Drop Pro, I actually found this booking for a KLM flight through Virgin Atlantic's Flying Club with fees that are slightly higher at $439, but it's going to cost just 33,000 points. Although with fees that high, you might want to consider your cash options as well, since sometimes they can be surprisingly affordable. And on that note, remember that there's absolutely nothing wrong with a great cash deal, even though I love my miles and points like you probably do too. When it comes to really affordable places like this, it's okay to take advantage of a cash deal and save those hard-earned points for your next travel adventure. Also, if you're wondering how I found my own award flight and all of the examples that I'm going through, I'm of course using Daily Drop Pro, like I just mentioned, and maybe I'm a little bit biased, but this is our amazing travel search tool for cash and points deals on flights and hotels, so if you want to learn more about that, I'll leave some info down in the description. Now, like I said at the start of this section, there are literally dozens of airlines that fly to Bali. So those are just a few of the favorites that I found, but other options worth looking into, depending on the type of transferable points you have and where you're coming from, would be Qantas options connecting through Australia. You could also book some of the examples that we just talked about through American Airlines, which would likely be your cheapest option, although their points are harder to come by. And lastly, EVA Air has a number of economy and business class options bookable with ANA that connect through Taiwan. So yes, I can personally attest now that this is one of the longest flights you will probably ever take in your life. And it is likely going to cost more points than award redemptions that you might be used to in other parts of the world. But with a little bit of flexibility and patience in your search, you can still snag some incredible deals to get to this tropical oasis. But now that we've got a way to get here, we're gonna need a place to stay. So let's talk about accommodations next. And if you're still having sticker shock from those flight options, then I've got good news for you because things are about to get a whole lot cheaper.
So if you decide to stay more towards the coast in the south of Bali, then getting to your hotel shouldn't be too difficult since the airport in Denpasar is also on the coast. We were a little further north in Ubud, but wherever you decide to stay, definitely download one of the ride-sharing apps that are popular in Indonesia like Gojek or Grab. Why someone named a ride-sharing app Grab, I will never understand, but figuring this out in advance is gonna make getting to your hotel much easier since the airport can be a bit chaotic.
Pretty much every major hotel brand, including Hyatt, Marriott, Hilton, and IHG, have a pretty large presence here in Bali. So while we could literally spend all day going through the many options that you have, I've narrowed it down to a few of my favorites using the Hotels Point Search tool in Daily Drop Pro. So we opted to stay with Hyatt at the Alila in Ubud, where our upgraded room was only 8,000 points per night. But depending on the time of year, there are several Hyatt properties, including the Grand Hyatt and Hyatt Regency Bali, where you can find rooms for as little as 6,500 points per night. You could also look into other options from Marriott and get a taste of luxury for relatively few points compared to other parts of the world. For example, the Ritz-Carlton Bali starts at around 43,000 points per night, and I even found nights at the St. Regis for 73,000 points. Obviously, that is way more points than the Hyatt examples that we just looked at, but if you're looking for a taste of luxury, then you could always put some Marriott free night awards to good use if you have them. And again, since cash prices even on these luxury properties are not that unreasonable in my opinion, it might be worth a splurge on a room that would cost 5 or 10 times more in other parts of the world for that same hotel brand. Speaking of cash bookings though, there are a number of name brand hotels here for less than $30 a night. Now, Hilton and IHG of course had to follow the luxury brand trend, with Hilton offering rooms at the Conrad Hilton starting around 46,000 Hilton Honors points per night, which is the equivalent of 23,000 transferable credit card points, and IHG offering 2 different intercontinental properties here in Bali starting around 25,000 IHG points per night. I feel like it is worth reminding you that with the exception of Hyatt, every brand that we just talked about offers 4th or 5th night free benefits, so if you're looking to stay here for more than a few days, then that is another thing worth considering. And if you're gonna fly to the other side of the world, then chances are you're gonna stay more than a few days. Final thoughts on Bali, Erin?
Loved it here.
It's been fantastic. Definitely worth the long flight. Check out our top travel credit cards page down in the description and sign up for Daily Drop Pro if you want to craft a trip like this for yourself to Bali. That's all. We love you, and we'll see you next week.